let me welcome you to this unique session. As in, the whole idea behind this discussion was that we have had enough webinars. As in, there has been a flood of webinars all around across the world. Yeah, so it's like let's have the participants and the audience also to have their say. So that was the whole idea behind this particular session. So I take this opportunity to welcome all of you. My name is Aakash Borse. I represent Faber Infinite. And I also take this opportunity to welcome a special guest, Brad, who has joined us from Japan. And I will definitely share the idea behind this particular session and some broad guidelines for this 40-minute session. So before I do that, I can see that there are participants who are joining in. There are a lot of them who have already joined. So welcome again to all of you. And the whole idea is you can unmute yourself whenever you want. We would encourage that you can share your videos as well. So as and when you're speaking, we can see you who's talking. And please ensure that you are on mute whenever you are not speaking so that we can listen to others. And whenever you are speaking, I'm sure you will respect the others' views as well. So that is something which is kind of an unsaid guideline, which I thought I will say and put it across to all of you. And when we are talking about this particular discussion, I would share and play the clip as a pretext for this particular discussion. I have shared that particular link with majority of the participants, but then we have had few participants who requested to join in a little later. So for them, I'll play this particular link before I start the actual discussion. So I'll quickly share my screen. Am I audible? Yes, okay, wonderful. So we'll start with this particular link. I think it has come up. Yes, okay, wonderful. Come on, bench 5. Check on the nut tightness. Nut coming through loose on bench 5. Attention, foreman. Section 5, more speed, 4-7. Believe man happy. Yeah, so I think this is for those who are new to this particular movie. I'll just give you a background. This comes from a movie, epic movie called as Modern Times by Charlie Chaplin. And just to give you a background, that even though when we talk about the commercial success of the movie, that is always questioned, but then it is categorized as one of the most epic movies of Charlie Chaplin. And this was the last time where he played his iconic character of Tramp. So it is perfectly set up at the juncture where the US economy was at the fag end of the Great Depression. And that's when we keep talking about Industry 2.0 and Industry 3.0 progression. So it is in a perfect setup when we talk about what happens to the people in that particular era, or whether that is Industry 2.0 or we are currently standing at the juncture of Industry 4.0. So the whole idea of this particular session was to welcome and encourage your views and thoughts how the industry should react to this particular situation, as hopefully we would be getting out of the COVID-19 situation, and the economy or the manufacturing industry would see a new era, right? So I think majority of the people have joined in. So can we start this particular discussion where, Brad, if you can open up and share your views.
All right, you guys can hear me and see me, hopefully.
Yes, of course.
All right, great. Yeah, so hi everybody, and I guess good evening and from Japan, and good afternoon to all you guys in India.
Yeah.
So I won't take, I mean, I've got a lot of notes and I really enjoyed the clip, so thanks, Aakash, that was really great. Pleasure. But maybe just a couple of thoughts from me is, you know, we have this saying in English, which I think many of you know, which says, the devil finds work for idle hands, right?
Yeah.
And I think in this case, the hands are not idle, but also I think, you know, we could say that the devil finds work for idle minds. And, you know, that's how can you channel the energy of all these people because their minds are switched off, you know, that's, I think, always the big challenge with lean, no matter what industry, if it's 4.0 or whatever, sometimes we, you know, if you're not careful, we actually ask people to become like robots, right? Always have a meeting like this, always do this, always do that, always do this. And if it's too boring, if it's too much the same, people's minds switch off and then they want to, you know, find entertainment, right? And normally the entertainment they create when they're bored is not very good ones.
True, that's true. I agree with you.
So that's maybe my first thought. I have a whole bunch of others, but I also want to get other guys to maybe say a few words. Yeah. Is that good? I mean, I have a lot more about
yeah. So typically, what happens when we talk about this particular setup as an industry, this is somewhere around 1936 where Charlie Chaplin picked up how the industrialization is shaping up. So typically around in 1800s, we had, as they say, Industry 1.0, where we had steam power, and around 1910s, that's when you had assembly line and mass production started. Right? And as you rightly pointed out, as in it looks funny, but then the kind of impact it has on people's minds and the way operators operate is phenomenal, and that kind of defines the society at that particular era. So it typically reminds me of a very interesting story. A dear friend of mine in Kenya, he shared it with me, as in this was like long back, almost a decade back, when we were discussing about how lean manufacturing has impacted the industry. So he was like, it was always good in those eras where you had craftsmen and artists who were manufacturing things, who were producing things. Let's say he took a very interesting example of an carpenter. He was like, before you guys came in, and this was specifically pointed to all the lean and operational excellence practitioners, like saying, even before you guys came in, you had those carpenters and artists who were manufacturing and preparing, let's say, a beautiful set of chair and furniture which can be used. And he used to admire his own creation. And later, when after you had this line, as in line manufacturing and assembly lines, you identified few people that who would be manufacturing only legs, who would be producing only the rear back, and who would be producing the bottoms of those chairs. And finally, you would be assembling. So now in this particular thing, the entire joy of manufacturing something was lost. Now, of course, there could be different schools of thought. But then when we talk about such, I would say, advances, it has to consider all pros and cons of the manufacturing concept that we talk about. Yeah. So I could hear there was someone who was wanting to come into the discussion. I can see Mr. Rajan as well. He was trying to speak. And I see Mr. Ravi, yes. Go ahead. You're on mute. We can't hear you. You are still on mute.
Yeah. Is it okay now?
Yeah, we can hear you now. Yes.
Yeah. Hi, Aakash. It's been a pleasure meeting you after so many days.
Of course, yeah.
Okay. And of course, we have been connected on various social medias and we've been exchanging our thoughts.
Yeah, of course.
I think when you see this video, I mean, it's amazing that so many years ago, I mean, when we point out 1936, 35, 36, I mean, those were times when obviously, there was no modernization and all the concepts of line balancing and all that we discussed today and we try to implement and all. This movie shows that how well people were manually even designed at that stage to carry out those operations. Now, if you see that sequencing that Charlie is doing, along with that, the changeover with this boss coming in or that gentleman, and then he hands it over and then goes for a break and then comes back. And even the entire break is so well monitored that, I mean, if there is a matter of time issue there and this boss is immediately seeing him on the television and or that screen and he's asking him to go back. Right. So obviously, I mean, it sets you thinking that, where are we? I mean, up today, we are looking at digital. We have got so many facilities today. We talk about Industry 4.0 and all these things coming in. But then, I mean, the grounds and the base was already very strong. I don't know if it's in those countries we talk about and, Japan and all. So, I mean, it sets me thinking that, why can't we do it today when these things could be done so easily in those days? And I believe all the way the operators were working and all, so much of meticulation, so much of synchronization, so much of using all the methodology. So I mean, it sets me thinking, and I think it's absolutely fabulous. I mean, such kind of videos take you back in time and make you realize where you are missing out today, and why not? I mean, these kind of challenges like COVID and all. They give you a lot of opportunities to really exercise what you've been missing out on and bring in new technologies to help people to survive this situation and make them manufacture things at a shorter period of time with the most modern gadgets or the technology that we can get today. So I think that's a very good point, and thanks for sharing that. And it set me thinking right in the morning when I got your mail and I saw that link and I saw it very comfortably with all my set of people. So I mean, it's absolutely fabulous. Yeah.
Right. Of course. Wonderful. So, and as you said, as you pointed out how things were in that era, Brad has also pointed out, there are a couple of things, like if you observe it further closely, there were those signs which were talking about no smoking, for that matter.
Yes.
There was this very interesting thing what he did when he was going out. Today we talk about putting in those cards, whether you call it in and out. So even those were kind of monitored and were there in 1930s, if I'm may point out. So there are several practices which have been there and which have continued even after such long time, almost 100 years, almost a century now. So that's true. But along with that, there are a few things that I wanted to talk as well in terms of when we talk about say improvements, or when we talk about such practices, are we still talking about those local improvements? Because typically in lean, we talk about that we should look at improvement as a whole and not in isolated islands. Now in here, one very important thing that we can observe is that increase the speed. When we talk about increasing production, we talk about increasing the speed. But then that is something which we, all of us, as in majority of us who are party to this particular discussion, would agree to, that there are many more ways to improve when we talk about increasing production, as in identifying those inefficiencies in the system. And I think which is the need of the hour as we talk about post-COVID situation, the manufacturing situation, because I've been lately, over the past 3 to 4 weeks, we have had multiple webinars where we were talking to a lot of industry leaders, and all of them have pointed out that they would want to accelerate their operational excellence or lean journey.
Yes.
Right. That I wanted to draw everybody's attention today when we are having this discussion, that operational excellence is going to be the new normal.
Yes. If I may speak here.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. See, obviously, we were running organizations all this while. There were certain systems that we were looking at, we were working on. Now, this kind of a pandemic came in and it stopped our operations, and then it created a huge vacuum or a gap where we set out thinking what is going to be our future now. Okay, now while there are issues on major fronts, like for example the parameters of this disease, or the correlation of that with the HR part, or the organization as a whole, and then the whole transit of how the functions are going to work now, keeping in mind the new government norms and all the kind of problems that are coming in. So now, while on one hand, yes, it does increase our workload and so many things will be coming in, HR will be having a very, very prominent role to play because they have to control people, and this aspect actually is governed by a lot of HR practices as well. So when we talk about the operators, their workings, their standards, their times, and the kind of the entire regulation of the shift, so many things are going to undergo a paradigm change. So, and that's very clearly obvious. While saying that, the second part is the entire supply chain has been stopped. Obviously, today we are looking at various pockets in the country which are in various zones like red, green, orange, and all, where the government is setting up policies to how to open all this. Now, it's going to have a lot of challenges on the supply chain, where materials may not reach on time, or maybe your suppliers, your dealers are in different zones where you cannot get your product sent for selling and all. So what is the purpose of manufacturing in isolation is going to be a very good question, which is going to come in, and it's already coming in into a lot of organizations. The second aspect is that how well we are going to optimize what we were doing earlier. Okay, because all of a sudden on the 23rd of March, everything came to a standstill. Things were going on, processes were going on, our products were going to the dealers, everything came to a standstill. Now, those orders, that situation which was there at that time, whether that would be a starting point to first, kind of set out on where we were. Second is to optimize the operations. That is where the operational excellence, acceleration part which you're talking about is going to come in and play a big role, because today you have to reduce the time. Okay, because earlier suppose there was a certain order which was taking say 1 week to be delivered. Now that has to be done in the shortest period of time, maybe say 3 days or 2 days. To do that, you need to undergo paradigm change in your operation cycles. There'll be a lot of things to be done there, and also the second most important thing is the number of workmen that you're going to use for the same work standards that you were using earlier is going to reduce, because most of these people are going to work on 50%. Okay, so obviously,
so that is what I was trying to highlight. You have given words to it. That's what I was trying to highlight. So it's like the operational excellence concepts, what were there for ages, it's going to be the new normal, and in all domains, whether that is manpower, productivity, or whether that is the entire value chain, will have to apply those concepts more aggressively. So it's like all these concepts which were like floating around for ages are going to be very much relevant and the need of the hour. So it is like the necessity which is going to be there. Yeah.
Yeah, obviously, because the operators now, you see, there's going to be increase in the timings. Obviously, the operator coming in, the number of capacity of the buses, everything will undergo a change. So when he's going to work at, come into the plant, he's going to clean his hands. He's going to spend time in wearing his, masks and other things and all the kind of, protocols. So that's going to increase the time. What is the availability of the shift time? So all these things will play a big role when you look at it in the whole, ecosystem. So that, and then your canteens, your timings of how you're going to distance people while sitting till the time this pandemic is there, at least, to start with setting norms. And I think that's going to remain for quite some time, because even after we gain control over all this, it's going to become the new standard. So obviously, we need to now see the damage has been done. But then, it's also an opportunity within this damage, so that, we can kind of operationally improve our systems and procedures, SOPs in various directions. It's a huge amount of work. I look at this as a complete BPR, which I had recently posted also on LinkedIn. So, this entire BPR exercise which is going to take place, we're going to completely have to reinvent the business. Only our customers and your suppliers would be almost the same, but then the other things all need to undergo a paradigm shift. I see it as a very big opportunity.
Right, I do agree with you, and that's something which is like for every one of us to explore together. I could see Mr. Rajan, who also wanted to say something. You're still on mute, Mr. Rajan. You can unmute yourself. There is an option of unmuting there. You can unmute yourself. You're still not audible. You're still not audible. So till the time Mr. Rajan unmutes himself, maybe Brad, you were saying something? You're on mute as well.
Yeah, hold on a second. Yeah, so actually I think, for everybody in India, this coronavirus is actually a really good chance for you guys, because the whole world, including Japan, the big theme right now is we call decoupling from China.
Right,
so
yeah.
There's a huge risk. We are also now fully aware. Before we were fooling ourselves saying, oh, they're a bunch of nice guys, the communists aren't that bad. But now that's not the case anymore. So I think with this whole wave of the whole world shifting away from China, India has a huge opportunity. But the way you're going to get the business from like these other Western companies, let's say Japan and these other companies, is you got to show that you're the good guys. We are here not to just be cheap. We're here to actually take care of the people. We're rotating jobs. We're doing lean. We know that we see smiles on the people's faces, and that's how you convince the procurement guys to make the shift, right? Because it's a strategic shift, and they have to. The deciding factor will be, will these guys get better and better over time? It's not the price point, So I think from an India point of view, this is a huge chance for you guys. You're a democracy. You have great English speakers, and you got a big population, huge potential market. This is your chance. So
yeah. So in fact, internally we were also discussing the other day. I was discussing with my team that this is a very good opportunity for a lot of Indian manufacturers. And lately we have had several requests from our clients and prospects where they were trying to explore in terms of what are those items or products that are getting moved from China to India. So, and as Mr. Vaideshwaran also highlighted in terms of that, it's going to be a big challenge. How are we going to take care of the entire value chain? As in, we have been talking about just in time, all the lean practitioners, operational excellence practitioners have been talking about going lean in the entire value chain. So like having just in time framework. But then today that also got questioned, as in the past 40 days, even that just in time framework also got questioned, because there were still organizations, manufacturing companies which were still operational, as in those essential goods manufacturers, those were still operational. And for them, it was a major challenge. How am I going to survive without those inventories? So that is one very interesting and important point to note. At the same time, as we are moving into this discussion, there is one very interesting view that I would want to put across to all the participants here. As in, we have been talking about a lot of automation. And today, when we talk about Industry 4.0, we are talking about how am I going to have machines talk to each other? And how am I going to make it less reliant on people, less people involved in the entire manufacturing process? But when we have that thought process, it is equally, I would say, rather more important to have logic. Where do I apply that automation? Because there have been examples and incidents where people have been talking about automating anything and everything. So that is another, I would say, a point of caution that we should keep in mind, right? So, Mr. Rajan, have you been able to unmute yourself?
Hi, Aakash, till Mr. Rajan comes, I would like to say a few things. Hello everyone, this is Vishal. Well, if I compare this video and what we are talking today, there are certain things which have changed over the years, but the basic fundamental of operations, which we talk about, has remained the same, and say this is going to remain the same even in the future as well, post this current crisis scenario. Now, the only thing which is changing is basically the way to manage these operations. Typically, if you talk about the video which you just played, where there was too much of a manual operations, too much of a strict supervision controls, and kind of an aspects of pushing the people, not encouraging the people to participate. So that era has now changed, where you talk about total concepts like total employee involvement, you talk about concepts like line balancing, you talk about concepts like daily work management, we talk about concepts like just in time, we talk about concepts like what to measure, what not to measure. And now going forward, irrespective of this crisis scenario and before this crisis scenario as well, when everyone was talking about the industry will now to go to the Industry 4.0, where these fundamentals of where we talk about the fundamentals in terms of importance of productivity, the fundamental of importance of quality, the fundamental of importance of best utilization of all the resources, best way to manage the operations, they will remain the same. The only thing which will change is basically we control all these aspects. Currently, we are controlling maybe through the manual approaches, through direct contacting, where the supervisor is directly discussing with the person about his performance. Now, this element may be now replaced by the machine, by the data analytics, where the machine or the data will directly speak with the operator, the machine will directly speak with the operator, and then it will talk about, and then all these aspects of productivity and everything will be controlled by the machine. So some of the tools and techniques which we were talking about, which earlier in current days are done by the human being, will now going forward will be replaced by the machine automatically doing it. Whether you call it line balancing, whether you call it just-in-time management, all these aspects will be taken out by the machine from the man. And the key element of man will be, of course, will remain. The skills of the man will remain about how to maintain these machines. So the skill level of person has to change over the period of time, and that's going to be, as you are correctly saying, can be a new normal going forward, which we should plan for.
Right, I agree, and I think that is something for all of us as a part of this particular platform. All of us should take this as a crusade when it comes to the skill development. So even if we are talking about attracting organizations which are manufacturing in China, and even if we talk about incremental growth, we'll have to talk about skill enhancement for all the people which are involved in the production. That's one. And the second is when we talk about operating with lesser people, because for the next few months, I think that will be the need of the hour. So I think that's where multi-skilling is going to be all the more important.
True.
True, yeah.
Yeah, Aakash.
Yes.
Sanjeev Hiremat here.
Yes, so if you can, hello Sanjeev, how are you?
Yeah, very good evening to everybody.
Good evening. So if you can introduce yourself before you start.
Yeah, I'm Sanjeev Hiremat, working as a chief manager for Arvind Envisol manufacturing division. I'm looking after the manufacturing activities of water treatment products like pressure tubes and package STP tanks. Earlier, I was with Wipro, and I have a major experience in manufacturing zone. So, should I continue with the topic now?
Yeah, of course, yeah.
Yeah. So, if I have to pick one or two points from the clip of Charlie Chaplin, so there are so many things shown into that. That is, one is the time management, the first thing, very first thing. Even the picturization and the machine arrangement and process one after the another, which we talk in the lean management. And there is a skill also shown. So somebody is able to pick up the speeds, variable speeds, but somebody is there to distract even the human beings, sometimes bosses, or the processes, or the requirement of the management. At the same time, there is a fly coming into the picture, which can be treated as a coronavirus of the day. That is also keeping distracting. But these are all, whatever I have told, all these are the challenges. So we have already traveled more than 80 to 100 years now. When we are talking about the operational excellence, it is going to be a challenge always. Whether we are into the manual mode, we are into the automation mode, we are into the 3 or 4, whatever is going to be there, the operational excellence challenge will always be there. When I am talking about the challenge, opportunities will also be there because they will be always related to the market requirements, the global scenarios, and whatever the conditions we are going to face in those times.
Right.
So, when we are connecting this point at this moment, actually, so there is no doubt we have to go into the automation 3 or 4. But how many people are going to implement, that is going to matter a lot now, because still, if I talk about the India, hardly 10 to 20% people are aware of it, and they are inclined to go into such processes. Now it is the time to pick by others also, so that the speed can be met along with the quality and time. That's all.
Right, wonderful. So in fact, when you said that around 20% of the organizations have implemented, and how many of them would actually go for this, I would say that's a big opportunity for people like you and me, because that is the need of our, and if they
that is what I mean to say. So that is a scope for you. That is a scope for you to penetrate and be a part to the nation's growth.
Right, of course. I'm glad you mentioned that. So it's something like every opportunity is hidden somewhere in the crisis. So it's like every crisis brings an opportunity. So we are at that particular juncture that we need to pounce on this particular opportunity. As in, I completely understand that it is slightly difficult when we mention that it is an opportunity, but then that's the fact of life.
Now, why it is so important at this moment? Till now, till this time, you might have approached so many people in the earlier days also, but they have never witnessed any losses of their business. There is no any decremental in their turnover they have seen. They have actually was not knowing about the challenges. The types of challenges are going to become in the future. But now everybody has witnessed it. So when you go and approach, at least from the first session itself, the discussions will start. So that is the change has already taken place, and it is the time for a change now, and it is a time for takeoff now.
Right. Okay. I am glad. So this is definitely a time for change, and this is kind of a forced change which has come upon the manufacturing fraternity.
Yeah.
Right. So
to put it in 2 words, till now we are not knowing what to do. Now we know what to do. So now the decisions will become conscious.
Okay, wonderful. Yeah, that's true. So now we know. As in, I would rather reiterate that we are forced to get into that direction. So it's like improve or perish. So we are in that kind of situation.
Yes, exactly. Thank you for giving me opportunity to talk. Thank you.
Pleasure. Of course, that was the whole idea behind this particular discussion. I can see Mr. Rajan is already online again. Survashi, who was trying to say something. Surva, would you want to come in.
Yeah, thank you, Akash, for having me here. A couple of interesting points which have been shared already, and citing reference from the Charlie Chaplin video. What we see is a typical example of a conveyor-driven line balancing, which was the norm at that time, and now the things have been replaced, as Vishal sir had mentioned. It's like the machines are operating on their own, so they have their own ecosystem. So, given the crisis, what we are seeing, what we might be able to see is more focus in this domain, and further going forward, people who were fence sitting whether to invest in IoT or not, whether Industry 4.0 is a good thing, will not have that option, and it will. It is kind of a catalyst to move on to Industry 4.0. Which given the scenario, we will have a certain shift on that direction. And yeah, and regarding Brad's point, like India being the next place for manufacturing, I think there are other opportunities in other countries as well, and it will only the future will tell us whether we can tap all the potential that has been there in the market, and let's hope for the best for this.
Of course.
I hope, yeah.
Right. So before you come in, Brad, on that point, there's one thing that I wanted to share, because we have been talking about a lot on this particular thing, that there is this new opportunity which has come up for the Indian manufacturing fraternity. So now in here, we have a webinar coming up on next Friday, where Vishal is going to talk about how the Indian manufacturing industry can benefit from this opportunity. As in, what is it that we should be doing differently to have all those manufacturing facilities coming from China, for that matter, into the country. So that would be an interesting session for a lot of manufacturing organizations, because a lot of them have been asking me this question, that what is it that we should be doing? How am I going to attract them? So that is, I would say, another need of the hour that we can look at. Yes, you were saying, Brad?
Okay, no, I wasn't. Yeah, so yeah, so definitely, I think that's a very, very interesting point. I think you know, the main impression, so India is a huge opportunity. The main impression that's bad for most people in Japan is it's very bureaucratic. And so if we can make it easy to do business there, like, you know, if it's just I don't know, one license, yeah, you know, here you are, let's have a meet, you find a supplier you like, you visit him, you like it, boom, 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 it's all done. That'll work. And you know, if India can just say, listen, we'll meet or beat China, don't worry, it's fine. Everybody in Japan knows that China, the prices always are going up. So if we can somehow say, don't worry, I'm doing lean, the prices will remain the same, or maybe we can, you know, work together. There's a lot of work that, you know, Japan's decoupling from China a lot. We're spending lots of money to take stuff out of China.
Right.
And a lot of the stuff will stay in Japan, but a lot of the stuff will then have to find another home elsewhere.
Of course, it has, because of those typical constraints, it has to happen. I agree with you.
It has to happen, yeah.
Yeah. So along with that, the price, so another concern when it comes to moving out of, as in decoupling with China, is the sheer scale of China. So that particular scale has to be met somehow. So that's where production efficiencies become all the more important now. Right. So I could see there were a couple of comments. Mr. Ravi Vaidishwaran wanted to say something, and Vishal wanted to ask a question. Yes, go ahead, Mr. Ravi.
Yeah, am I audible? Yeah.
Yeah, sure. Yes, you are.
See, now most of these things that we are discussing is still at a very nascent stage. See, because my like the kind of work that we do here is that we are also working with the government to design some strategies and policies of what is going to happen over the next 6 months. And see, even though, you know, seeing the current situation, the government has formulated some policies for some industries, and it is still in process. It's very early for us to say what would be the industrial picture future of for India as this at this stage, because it involves a lot of influx of money, influx of funds, influx of resources, where people are expecting, obviously, the government also to play a big role, which we are not very clear about as to what is, because currently the whole, the focus is on controlling this disease and stopping the spread, because that is the prima facie main area of work as of now. But then that said, I think a huge chunk of, because we work with MSMEs also, a huge chunk of MSMEs people are really in very deep trouble. I mean, I would say that they don't have funds today as a result of this crisis, because they were already tight, even before all this started. But then these people are already, now in a situation where they are in deep red color, because they don't even have money to pay their pay the salaries of their employees, and they are expecting a lot of things to happen. From the authorities of the governments of the states to provide those kind of funds for even their current day-to-day survival, which I'm quite worried about, because we talk to over 20 people every day from the MSME sectors, and they were already in a kind of a cash-tight situation, because their business model is virulently different from, as you compare with bigger organizations. So you see the diversity that our country faces in these type of epidemics, and I think a lot of things have to be framed, policies have to be made. I mean, we are still not clear as to where we are today regarding all those things, and funds for doing all this, and a lot of MSMEs are also interested in going into digital control of their operations, because you see the basic philosophy of the government to reduce their manpower itself is going to have a very big catalytic effect towards moving towards digital influx of the operation. So it's going to really make a big change, and I think even after all this is over, these norms are going to remain, because we'll have to be, it's like once bitten twice shy kind of, so, and India, till the time it develops its medical infrastructures and all to cope up with these kind of pandemics in future also, and then also all the developmental work and all which is going to now start, and they're already doing it. So till that time, I think, and the industry being a very big chunk and MSMEs being an even greater chunk, there has to be a certain set of opportunities for the MSMEs to bounce back and then start their operations. And most of them are very interested to speak about how the the different the norms, the different norms which are going to come in is going to work in bringing in all these digital technologies and all, and help them to kind of speed up all that what they're going to lose out of all this. So that is a very big step which is coming in, and we are working with the government authorities also to understand what they're formulating, and state to state it is different. So it's a very complex model at this time, and I think with over a period of time these things will become clear. But yes, I think the focus is to streamline and produce more in a lesser time. That's the fundamental buzzword. That's very clear.
Of course. So, Mr. Vaideshwaran, I partially agree with what you are saying, as in terms of course, there's the need of the hour that we need to produce more and we need to find ways. That goes without saying. And that's, I would say, that is applicable across the sector. So whether that is MSME or large-scale organization, everybody will have to step up. The only thing that I would want to, I would say, with your point that you raised, that what is it that the government should support the MSME? I would rather say that the situation is difficult for everyone.
Yeah,
the situation is going to is difficult for everyone. So how many of them that the government or this public sector is going to support? That's a big question.
Yeah, that's a big question.
I've had multiple discussions with all different sets of people, different businesses. Obviously, everybody is looking for one or the other benefit. But then how much is that the government can fund? That is another question that we need to be aware about. So it's like as FDR said, as in during the Great Depression, as in don't ask what the country can do for you, but then what you can do for the country. That is another thought process, if I may put that across. So it's like, having said that, this particular situation comes up with an opportunity. How do we innovate and come up with a better solution in a shortest time frame?
Absolutely.
So it gives you another perspective, as in like it's very much in the public domain that people have been talking about the time to market. So when we talk about the time to market, the shortest has been for vaccine, the shortest has been 18 months. And today we are talking about coming up with a vaccine in another, say,
3 months, 4 months kind of.
3 to 4 months. Now
Yeah.
that kind of revolution what we are talking about. In fact, I have been working with a lot of teams, as in a lot of clients who have been coming up products for this pandemic within span of few weeks. Like there's a friend of mine who has come up with a device, kind of a splitter, which would increase, or rather I would say double the capacity of ventilators within a span of few weeks. So that's the kind of solutions what we'll have to come up with.
Yes.
Right. So I see a couple of messages. Mr. Rajan, can you, as in he left, yes. Jalai wanted to say something. Jalai,
Hi everyone, good afternoon and good evening, Brad. So I just wanted to add, build upon what Brad and Akash have just mentioned. When I agree what Brad is saying, that yes, the first impression of about India is there are lots of bureaucracy, but then again it depends on state to state. There are a couple of states like Gujarat, Andhra Pradesh, Telangana where there is a single window clearance. You just go to one place within 48 hours, within 72 hours, you get all the clearance. And maybe that is the reason one of the largest Japanese companies and the Japanese cluster is in Gujarat. You would be surprised that even government is building the residential colonies for Japanese expatriate, especially based on the Japanese configuration, so that they get they don't miss back home. But having said that, even yesterday or day before yesterday, our minister Mr. Gadkari also has mentioned that this is a good opportunity for many companies to collaborate with foreign companies and bring them here, so that it's a win-win for both the side. But having said that, we all have to understand that one of the core thing is craftsmanship and the quality. So quality is in each and everything, whatever you do, starting from paperwork to whatever you produce. Because if we will not give attention to the type of craftsmanship and quality, it becomes very difficult to bring in that foreign investment and foreign companies back here in India, because that is one of the area where we think that it is okay. We feel that 90% is equal to 100%, which is not the case. So I think that's my point I wanted to add.
sure, of course, that's a very good insight, and I agree with you. There are a lot of measures which have been taken up. So it's like for the local authorities to take up that particular measure a step up. So and so. So we had Vishal who wanted to ask a question. Vishal, if you are still around.
Yeah. Hi. Good evening, Brad. This is Vishal here.
Yeah.
Hi. So, Brad, my question to you is like over the decades, Japan has given so many things to the world in the area of operational excellence, whether starting with simple concepts like 3 moves, 8 waste, and followed with 5S, JIT, Kanban, Pokayoke, and so on. Now, what's Japanese industry is thinking now in this crisis scenario? What new are we expecting that will come to the world from Japan?
That's like the one of the questions that Japan has to ask as well for itself. So let's see. So honestly speaking, a lot of people in Japan feel that we have actually lost something since the 80s and 90s. We are, and the reason why I say this is most of our IT, and probably even India too, if you look at what are people buying, they're actually buying more control. Like, so, so let's say if you put an SAP system in, you're buying more control. I can see or at least you think you're getting more control, right? You're not investing to make the job faster, easier, or, whatever, like what we were saying just now, make more with less. It's always you're investing in more control. And then again, what happens is people are smart and they find ways around it, and then you have less control. Whereas, even on the Charlie Chaplin movie, that supervisor on the shop floor had control because he was just there. That's a very cheap way of maintaining control, So
Very true.
I think, yeah, what's coming out of Japan is we're in a bit of a loss. Hopefully, we'll come out of it, but at least if manufacturing comes back into Japan, we'll figure it out. And I think the big thing coming from Japan is we are very good at now using mentally disabled people, physically disabled people, people that don't speak Japanese. So you know, using more of the lower level people in the world, I think we'll have a lot of innovation there, and hopefully that's something that we can share with the world.
Interesting.
Great.
Looking forward.
Interesting, Brad.
Great.
There was a message from Prajakta. Prajakta, you would want to share your views? If you're around.
Hi.
Hi, yes.
Yeah, so this was regarding, we were talking about a point called something about bureaucratic difficulties being faced in the country. So my point of what I wanted to put across was that in spite of all those obstacles, it's also got to do more with the mindset and the alignment, the kind of alignment that we provide to the business that can help us to tap out on those opportunities. So apart from the operational excellence that we talk about, apart from the use of latest technology and machinery, I think the people-centric approach also is very important here.
Well, that's true. I agree. And I think even when we talk about operational excellence or lean, that has been the crux for a lot of, I would say, good practitioner, that it has to revolve around people. And when we talk about total employee involvement and engagement, has been and should be the crux. I agree with you there. Yeah, so I think there was one more comment from Amay. Amay, you would want to come in there?
Yeah, good afternoon, Aakash, and good afternoon, everyone.
If you can
Yeah,
quickly before you say.
Yeah, I just wanted. I am Ameya Prakash Tatu. I am working with one of the major EPC company located at Gujarat. So I wanted to just add a few words. What Vishal said. So Vishal has rightly said that there are many concepts and many techniques given by the Japan to the world, and those are very helpful technique to improve our productivity and efficiency and the survival for the business. But now what I strongly feel is now it's time that India will give something to the world to to survive, how to survive in the business, and the people like you will definitely develop some new concepts, and will definitely will share with the world how to grab this opportunity and survive in the competition.
Sure, Amay. Thank you for your views. Yeah. So I think we've had enough discussion on how things will shape up and how this Charlie Chaplin scenario has been still relevant. So there have been a lot of debates around the applicability of Industry 4.0 in the current situation. I would say rather that still held some ground pre-COVID times, but I think post-COVID everybody will have to agree and go ahead with this new way of working. So I take this opportunity to thank everyone for this particular time that we spent. It is a good short time that we spent. I would want to share a few points as we close this session. Before I do that, any closing points, remarks, anybody would want to come in? Somebody who has not said anything so far. Mr. Raj is trying to come in, but I think he's still facing challenge with his audio. Right. So, Brad, if we can have a closing remark. There was someone who was saying before Brad comes in. Okay, no. So, Brad, if you can give a closing remark, and then I can put in my words. Yes. Anyone else who's trying to speak? Okay, no problem, Brad.
Okay, yeah. So first of all, thank you so much for the invitation. It was really, really interesting. Very wonderful to meet you all, and I really enjoyed the nice sharing of ideas, and I've got a whole bunch of notes today as well for myself. So thank you. So I think the one thing we want to avoid is, and this is I think most countries, especially probably Japan, definitely India, probably, but normally the government doesn't do many things very well.
Right.
So when we say the government should do this, should do that, it's always best to think, what can I do? Maybe with a couple of guys or a couple of other businesses. that's what we find. Every time we rely on the government, we always end up losing to China or to someone else. Every time we do it as an industry group, maybe it's a little bit better. So maybe try and find like-minded friends, and especially us consultant guys, that's how we should think. Business owners also, it's always better to deal with another business owner than some government official, right? So hopefully, you guys can have more and more of that, and then that's very attractive for, let's say, a Japanese company to plug into that kind of business people's network. It's much more attractive than some kind of government office that's a clearinghouse, So.
Sure. Yeah, of course. That is something that we'll have to take up. On that note, I thank all of you again. I thank Brad for joining in at short notice. One thing that I wanted to put across as a closing note, that it has been interesting that we have picked up from Charlie Chaplin movie, and I would want to highlight that tomorrow is a World Laughter Day, and we just had celebrate as in marked 131st birth anniversary of Charlie Chaplin. So it's like kind of sinks in with the point that we have been talking about. Just to draw some conclusion out of this discussion, what we have had, of course, one of the major points that came up, that there is a lot of opportunity for countries when we decouple from China, as in when the world decouples from China. That is something that a lot of people and a lot of countries have been talking about. But at the same time, that brings in a lot of focus on improving the entire value chain, improving the production and the manpower productivity that we have been talking about. So overall production levels and manpower productivity improvements becomes extremely relevant in today's time. And as several friends of mine have been talking about, that operational excellence is going to be the new normal. So whether that is for the consulting fraternity or friends from operational excellence domain from different manufacturing organizations, that brings in a completely new set of opportunities that we can bounce upon. On a final note, there have been comments that we need to focus on people and people centricity, whether we call it as a gross human potential or in terms of that people centricity has to be extremely important. I also wanted to share on something similar, that we need to empathize with the people as well. People empathy is been the core of any improvement journey. So whether you call it as lean or world-class manufacturing or TOC, people centricity is important, was important, and shall continue to be important. So on that note, there is another Charlie Chaplin clip what I wanted to share as a closing note, and then we can be in touch post this discussion as well. So I'll quickly share my screen. Now this is to be taken in a right spirit, where I was talking about that where do we put in automation is extremely important. So I'll share that window. I hope that it is on now. You can see my screen. Yeah, it's coming up. Yeah, so I'll share another clip. Yes. Now this is something.
Yeah, it's coming up.
Yeah, so it's something from the same movie where they're automating the entire process where the operator eats the meal.
Brilliant.
Empezaremos otra vez con la sopa.
Superb, superb.
Yeah. So I think there is a lot that we can talk about operational excellence when it comes to both the clips that we saw. So whether that is concepts like line balancing or using both the hands, or whether that is concepts like looking at the entire value chain and not look at islands of excellence. There, as in we can talk about it for hours together. So I think the whole point that I wanted to drive with the second clip was that, of course, anything and everything that we do for continual improvement is with a focus of people in mind. So let's keep that focus as we progress, as we go along. And I hope that together, all of us, we would be able to find a solution for this COVID-19 situation. And as a humankind would be coming up with a solution, and we would come out victorious of this situation. So till then, be safe, take care of yourself. We will look forward to connecting again on different platforms. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you,
everyone.
everyone.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.